fact, Australia was meant to be Meghan Markle's defining moment back in 2018 when she and Prince Harry toured Sydney, Melbourne and beyond. The global press hailed it as a triumph. The photos were stunning. Sunlit beaches, massive crowds, and a duchess who seemed to have effortlessly stepped into her role as a humanitarian on the world stage. But behind the glossy images, a very different story was unfolding. A story that over the years would lead Australia to quietly but firmly close its doors on Meghan and Harry. Not through laws or official bans, but with something far more damaging, an unspoken barrier built from politics, public opinion and diplomatic whispers. And according to investigative journalist Tom Bauer, that invisible wall is exactly why Meghan Markle now finds herself effectively shut out of Australia. Think about how harsh that is. One of the most influential nations in the Commonwealth, a country that once rolled out the red carpet for the Sussexes, now wants nothing to do with them. And this isn't about gossip or petty rivalries. Australia knows better than most the fragile balance the monarchy holds. For decades, the country has debated breaking away from the crown. They understand how quickly traditions can crumble if outsiders start bending the rules to suit their own agendas. And Meghan and Harry didn't just bend the rules. They bulldozed straight through them. Bauer makes it clear, for Meghan to return to Australia, the government would have to extend an official invitation. And invitations like that don't happen in isolation. They go through diplomatic channels, with the British Foreign Office and Buckingham Palace signalling their approval behind the scenes. And right now, those signals are crystal clear. Don't invite them. Not for official tours, not for Commonwealth events, not even as a courtesy. Why? Because the palace doesn't want Harry and Meghan staging their own royal tours and confusing the world about who actually represents the crown. Their so-called humanitarian trip to Nigeria earlier this year was the breaking point. They landed, strutted through events as though they were still working royals, and created a diplomatic nightmare so severe that governments across the Commonwealth quietly decided, never again. Australia saw the chaos and decided to keep its distance. But the political freeze-out is only half the humiliation. The other half is financial. Because, as Bauer points out, Meghan and Harry no longer pay for their own international travel. Every private jet, every motorcade, every security team, someone else has to pick up the tab. And a royal-style tour of Australia costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Security, logistics, accommodations, staffing. It's a bill few are willing to foot, especially for a couple who walked away from royal duties but still expect royal treatment. Which explains why Meghan hasn't stepped foot in Australia since 2018, despite once viewing it as her springboard to global stardom. She believed that tour had crowned her as the new Diana, but 7 years later, that dream has dissolved. No authority, no broad public appeal, and no profitable brand worth investing in. The woman who once thought she had conquered the Commonwealth now finds herself with no stage left to stand on. And Australians haven't forgotten. Public opinion polls tell a story that's almost cruel in its precision. Back in 2018, Meghan and Harry were the glamorous newcomers breathing life into the monarchy. Today they languish near the bottom of the popularity rankings, right alongside royals scarred by years of scandal. What changed? Australians never saw them return to nurture the goodwill of that first tour. They didn't invest in the communities they visited. They didn't build lasting connections. Instead, headlines of victimhood interviews, luxury living in Montecito, and endless complaints painted them as reality TV stars rather than true humanitarians. Australians pride themselves on authenticity, bluntness, and humility, and Meghan's carefully curated image never fit that mould. The Oprah interview that stunned the US was received with suspicion in Australia. Fact checks revealed inconsistencies, and her constant grievances clashed with a culture that values rolling up your sleeves and getting on with it. To many Australians, Meghan looked less like Diana and more like a Hollywood actress trying to rewrite the monarchy's script. The contrast with William and Catherine is stark. When they visit, they focus on community, meeting with schools, hospitals, Indigenous centres and disaster victims. They listen, they kneel, they connect. Harry and Meghan, by comparison, often looked more concerned with photo angles than with people's stories. Even during the 2018 tour, staff complained about endless demands for image control. Since then, the optics have only worsened. Australian media hasn't held back either, mocking the irony of Meghan calling for privacy while simultaneously profiting off documentaries, podcasts and tell-all books. To them, it all looked like spin, and when Australians smell performance, they tune out. And then there's the money. News that Meghan and Harry only travel when someone else pays turned disappointment into disdain. To Australians, it reeks of entitlement. How can a couple with multi-million-dollar Netflix deals and a sprawling mansion still expect others to bankroll their adventures? Instead of trailblazers carving out independence, they appear as opportunists taking handouts. That perception only deepens with every failed venture. Spotify dropped them, Netflix deals fizzled, and lifestyle projects collapsed before they even began. Meghan's recent public appearances, like showing up dripping in borrowed diamonds at Kevin Costner's charity gala, look less like triumphs and more like desperate attempts to cling to relevance. And that's why Australia's rejection stings so much. Because it's more than one country saying no. It's a reflection of a wider Commonwealth strategy. Nations that once embraced royal visits are now united in keeping Meghan and Harry away from official stages. It's not hatred, it's self-preservation. They can't afford the confusion or the drama. The result? Silence. No invitations, no crowds, no fanfare, just indifference. For Meghan, who built her identity on being seen, adored and discussed, that silence is the harshest verdict of all. Australia's cold shoulder isn't just about blocking one tour. It's about Meghan Markle's fading relevance across the entire Commonwealth. And for someone who once dreamed of stepping into Princess Diana's shoes, there may be no greater loss.